Professor Zix 427's tentacles twitched nervously as the quantum transport beam materialized 12 of the galaxy's most promising xenology students in the arrival chamber. The protective environmental suits they wore gleamed under the soft lighting of Earth's first interstellar university campus, their varied forms representing the finest academic minds from across the Galactic Confederation. "Welcome to Earth Studies Program, Class of 2247, the professor's translator hummed, converting their harmonious resonances into standard human English. You are now standing on what the Galactic Classification Board has designated as a Class 12 Deathworld, though our human colleagues prefer the term Earth or Terra." A ripple of electromagnetic signals passed through the group, the equivalent of anxious murmuring. Lyra 8, a crystalline being from the low-gravity world of Luminara, raised an appendage. "Professor, my sensors indicate the gravity here is 9.8 meters per second squared. How do organisms function under such crushing force?" The professor's bioluminescent spots flickered in what passed for a reassuring smile. "An excellent question. In fact, that's why we're all here. Despite these conditions, or perhaps because of them, Earth has produced one of the most resilient and adaptable species in known space: humans." The chamber's far door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing 5 young humans wearing the blue uniforms of the Earth University Exchange Program. The alien students instinctively backed away, their protective fields humming to maximum strength. "These are your research partners for the semester," Professor Zix 427 explained, gesturing with a primary tentacle. "They'd volunteered to help us understand how their species has not only survived but thrived in these extreme conditions." Sarah Chen, the lead human student, stepped forward with a warm smile. "Hi everyone. We're so excited to work with you. I know Earth must seem pretty intense, but I promise it's not as scary as the classification makes it sound." Rix, a gaseous entity contained within a floating sphere, pulsed with skepticism. "Not as scary. Your planet experiences regular electromagnetic atmospheric discharges, periodic tectonic plate shifts, and extreme temperature variations. How can you be so calm?" "Oh, you mean lightning, earthquakes, and weather?" James Rodriguez, another human student, chuckled. "Those are just part of life here. Actually, many of us enjoy watching storms. I'm a storm chaser in my free time." The alien student's vital signs simultaneously spiked, causing the campus medical eye to flag a potential mass panic event. Professor Zix 427 quickly intervened. "Perhaps we should begin with orientation before discussing recreational activities." "Good idea," Sarah agreed, seemingly oblivious to the distress she caused. "Let's start with a tour of the campus. The environmental controls in all buildings are rated for every known sentient species, so you can safely remove your suits once inside." As they moved through the airlock chamber, Zix 427 observed the fascinating interaction dynamics. The humans walked with a casual grace that seemed to defy the crushing gravity, while the alien students hovered, floated, or carefully stepped using their gravity compensators. Nexus V, a synthetic intelligence in a humanoid frame, recorded everything with particular interest. "Professor, my initial analysis suggests these humans have adapted to use their planet's hostile conditions as advantages. Is this common among Deathworld species?" "That's exactly what we're here to study," the professor replied. "Humans are unique even among Deathworld inhabitants. They've developed something they call sports and outdoor activities, which deliberately expose them to environmental challenges. We'll be exploring this phenomenon throughout the semester." The group entered the main university building, where the alien students hesitantly began deactivating their protective fields. Through the massive windows, Earth's blue sky stretched endlessly, dotted with white clouds that promised rain later, a prospect that both thrilled and terrified the visiting students. Sarah turned to address the group with enthusiasm. "Who's ready to learn about Earth's seasons? Wait until you hear about something we call winter sports." The medical AI logged 12 more anomalous vital sign spikes and began preemptively preparing the anxiety treatment facilities. It was going to be an interesting semester. The morning of their first campus tour dawned with what Sarah Chen described as perfect weather, a statement that sent Lyra 8's crystalline structure into concerned vibrations. The alien students huddled near the building's entrance, their environmental sensors working overtime to analyze the conditions. 23 degrees Celsius. Mrix's gaseous form swirled anxiously within their containment sphere. The thermal variance from the morning low was 7 degrees. 7 degrees in a single planetary rotation cycle. How do humans maintain molecular cohesion? Professor Zix 427 adjusted their recording apparatus. That's precisely what we're here to study. Now, please activate your protective fields. We're about to step outside. The human students waited patiently, wearing nothing more protective than light jackets and something they called sunglasses. James Rodriguez stretched casually in the morning sunlight, causing several alien students to flinch at the sight of his deliberately extended muscles. The path around the lake is beautiful this time of year, Sarah explained, pointing toward a body of liquid dihydrogen monoxide that sparkled ominously in the sunlight. We thought we'd start with an easy nature walk. Nature walk. Nexus V's humanoid frame tilted in confusion. You intentionally expose yourselves to unconstrained organic environments for recreational purposes. Oh yeah, it's really relaxing, Monica Thompson, another human student, chimed in. I go hiking in the mountains most weekends. Nothing better than fresh air and sunshine. The alien students' collective horror at the word mountains was interrupted by a small winged creature landing nearby. The humans called it a sparrow, but to the extraterrestrial visitors, it was a stark reminder that Earth's life forms had evolved to survive in these hellish conditions. Perhaps, Professor Zix 427 suggested diplomatically, we should begin with some basic observations from a safe distance. The group moved along the paved pathway, with the alien students maintaining a careful distance from the grass edges. Their sensors recorded everything: wind speed variations, pollen counts, ultraviolet radiation levels, and the mysterious human ability to ignore it all. Oh, look, ducks! Sarah pointed excitedly to several aquatic birds gliding across the lake's surface. They're starting to migrate south for winter. Migration? Lyra 8's crystalline form pulsed with disbelief. Your planet's axial tilt forces mass species relocation. Well, yeah, James shrugged. Some birds fly thousands of miles. Pretty cool, right? Before the aliens could process this new horror, a light breeze stirred the trees, sending leaves dancing through the air. The sudden movement triggered automatic defense protocols in half the alien students' suits. Don't worry, Monica laughed, catching a leaf in her bare hand. The trees are just getting ready for fall. Wait until you see the colors change. Professor Zix 427's tentacles curled thoughtfully as they noted the humans' complete nonchalance toward their environment's constant flux. The academic implications were staggering. Question: Mrix pulsed urgently. These seasonal changes, you experience them every planetary cycle? Every year, Sarah confirmed cheerfully. We've got 4 seasons here in this region. Spring's my favorite, when everything starts blooming. The concept of cyclical planetary transformation proved too much for one of the hovering students, who needed to retreat to their portable meditation chamber. Professor Zix 427 quickly consulted their lesson plan. Perhaps we should proceed to the indoor portion of our tour, they suggested. The Botanical Cultivation Laboratory. You mean the greenhouse? James interrupted. Actually, there's a meteor shower tonight. We were thinking of having a stargazing picnic on the quad. You're all invited. The medical AI registered a new record for simultaneous emergency beacon activations as the alien students processed the idea of voluntarily sitting on the ground while space debris entered the atmosphere. Professor Zix 427 made a note to revise the semester's exposure therapy schedule. At this rate, they'd need to delay the rainfall experience module until at least midterm. The humans, meanwhile, had already started planning something they called a winter ski trip. The Galactic Academic Board was definitely going to require additional liability waivers. The university's fitness center loomed before the alien research team like a temple of incomprehensible human rituals. Through the transparent walls, they could see dozens of humans voluntarily engaging in what appeared to be sustained physical torture. Today, Professor Zix 427 announced, their tentacles professionally steady despite their own apprehension, we will observe human physical conditioning practices. Lyra 8's crystalline structure emitted a high-pitched frequency of distress. Professor, my sensors must be malfunctioning. That human is repeatedly lifting and lowering a metal bar loaded with additional mass. That's just Brad doing deadlifts, Sarah explained cheerfully. He's training for the upcoming powerlifting competition. His personal best is 250 kilograms. The alien students collectively retreated several meters, their protective fields humming in synchronized horror. Mrix's gaseous form condensed to half its normal volume. Clarification needed. Nexus V's processors whirred frantically. Humans intentionally strain against planetary gravity for entertainment? James grinned, pulling out his phone. Here, let me show you my workout playlist. Music helps with motivation during exercise. They require sonic enhancement to continue these endurance rituals, Mrix whispered to their fellow students. Fascinating and disturbing. Inside the facility, the alien researchers witnessed even more bewildering scenes. Humans ran nowhere on rotating platforms, cycled on stationary machines, and suspended themselves from bars to perform what they called pull-ups. Professor Zix 427's recording devices worked overtime as Monica demonstrated proper squatting technique. Notice how humans can repeatedly lower and raise their entire body mass while maintaining balance in Earth's gravity, they narrated for the academic log. But why? A floating sphere student named Vex-12 pulsed with genuine confusion. Your species already survived planetary conditions. Why deliberately stress your biological systems? Sarah wiped sweat from her forehead with a small towel, causing several aliens to recoil at the sight of human cooling mechanisms in action. It's fun. Plus, it makes us stronger and healthier. I've been working on my core strength for rock climbing. The professor quickly muted their translator's audio output before it could relay several anatomically impossible exclamations from the research team. The concept of deliberately climbing vertical stone formations would need to be addressed in a future, heavily supervised session. Look at this, James called out, directing attention to a human female performing what he called yoga. The alien students watched in horrified fascination as she contorted her body into various positions, deliberately stretching her endoskeleton's range of motion. Remarkable adaptability, Professor Zix 427 noted. Humans appear to have evolved beyond standard physical limitations through sheer determination. The observation session reached its climax when the group witnessed a cardio kickboxing class. The sight of 20 humans synchronously punching the air while hopping to rhythmic beats sent Lyra 8 into emergency stasis mode. Don't worry, Monica assured them, misinterpreting their reaction. Beginners' classes are much easier. You should join us sometime. Professor Zix 427 quickly intervened before the mass panic could escalate further. Perhaps we should proceed to our theoretical discussion of human physical capabilities. Good idea, Sarah agreed. We can show them the sports medicine lab. There's a fascinating display about how human muscles repair and strengthen themselves after exercise. The revelation that humans deliberately induced microdamage to their muscle fibers for progressive enhancement led to an immediate call for an emergency meditation break. The professor used this opportunity to update their research notes, adding a new category: voluntary evolution through controlled trauma. As the alien students huddled in their portable relaxation chambers, they could hear the humans enthusiastically planning something called a group workout session. The medical AI preemptively began preparing the psychological support units. Professor Zix 427 made a final note. Day 3. Humans continue to defy conventional biological logic. Request immediate update to xenobiology textbooks. Suggestion: create new classification for species that view death-defying activities as lifestyle choices. The atmospheric disturbance began during Professor Zix 427's lecture on human dietary adaptations. First, the sky darkened to an ominous shade of gray. Then came the drop in barometric pressure that sent every alien student's environmental sensors into overdrive. Fascinating, Sarah whispered, glancing out the window. Looks like we'll get to see a real thunderstorm. The meteorology students must be thrilled. Mrix's gaseous form swirled chaotically within their containment sphere. Emergency protocols suggest immediate underground shelter. Why are the humans not moving? A distant rumble of thunder sent Lyra 8's crystalline structure into resonant frequencies of panic. Atmospheric electrical discharge detected. Professor, we must activate the planetary defense shields. Actually, James said, pulling out his phone, this storm system looks perfect for some lightning photography. Anyone want to watch from the observation deck? Professor Zix 427's tentacles curled in disbelief as several human students began excitedly gathering their recording devices. Their translators struggled to keep up with the burst of electromagnetic distress signals from the alien research team. Clarification required. Nexus V's processors whirred anxiously. You intentionally observed these planetary defense system failures. Monica laughed, adjusting her camera settings. Defense system. No, this is just regular weather. Earth's water cycle in action. The lightning is particularly beautiful at night. The first droplet of rain hit the window with an audible pat, causing Vex 12's protective field to extend to maximum radius. The sky is deploying liquid projectiles. This cannot be normal planetary behavior. Oh, it's completely normal, Sarah assured them, opening her backpack to retrieve a folded device. That's why we invented umbrellas. Simple but effective rain protection, though sometimes I just enjoy walking in it. The alien students watched in horror as their human classmates casually prepared to expose themselves to the elements. Professor Zix 427 quickly accessed the Earth Studies Safety Protocols database. Perhaps, they suggested diplomatically, we should use this opportunity for remote observation and data collection. A brilliant flash of lightning illuminated the sky, followed by a thunderous boom that rattled the windows. 3 alien students immediately activated their emergency stasis protocols, while 2 others began broadcasting farewell messages to their homeworlds. Check out that strike, James exclaimed, his camera clicking rapidly. Must have hit pretty close. The electrical charge in the air makes my hair stand up. Static electricity accumulation. Mrix pulsed in alarm. The humans have been compromised by atmospheric energy weapons. Sarah ran her fingers through her slightly frizzy hair, grinning. No, this is totally normal. Sometimes we even count the seconds between lightning and thunder to calculate storm distance. Want to try? Professor Zix 427's research notes became increasingly frantic. Humans appear to have developed recreational mathematics based on monitoring planetary bombardment. Further study required to understand this evolutionary adaptation. The storm intensified, bringing sheets of rain that cascaded down the windows. The human students pressed closer to the glass, pointing out particularly impressive lightning bolts and cloud formations. Meanwhile, the alien research team huddled in the center of the room, their various environmental shields creating a disco-like light show of protective fields. You know what this means? Monica asked cheerfully. Puddles tomorrow. I love splashing in puddles after a good storm. Lyra 8's crystalline structure emitted a high-pitched keen of distress. They intentionally interact with collected atmospheric projectiles. For entertainment? Speaking of entertainment, James added, checking his weather app, this system might bring hail. That would be awesome to document. Professor Zix 427 made an emergency call to the university's xenopsychology department. They were definitely going to need more counseling resources before introducing the concept of snow days to their traumatized research team. Outside, the storm raged on, punctuated by the excited chatter of human students and the collective anxiety signals of their alien classmates. Earth's weather, it seemed, was yet another example of how humanity had turned their Deathworld's dangers into a source of wonder. The university cafeteria buzzed with activity as Professor Zix 427 led their increasingly anxious research team through the double doors. The cacophony of human eating habits immediately triggered several emergency sensor protocols. Today, the professor announced, their tentacles professionally steady, we will observe human nutritional practices in their natural environment. Lyra 8's crystalline structure vibrated with concern as they watched a student bite into something called a hamburger. They're consuming partially combusted organic matter, with additional organic matter layered between processed grain panels. Oh, eating a bun? Sarah smiled, setting down her tray loaded with various items that caused the aliens' analysis equipment to spark in confusion. Wait until you see what we put on top. The cafeteria makes amazing caramelized onions. Mrix's gaseous form coiled tightly within their containment sphere. They deliberately alter molecular structures through heat application for pleasure. That's called cooking, James explained, returning from the sandwich station. Almost everything humans eat is prepared somehow. Raw food can be dangerous. Professor Zix 427 quickly added a note. Humans acknowledge their food sources are hazardous, yet continue to consume them after applying thermal modification rituals. The alien students watched in fascinated horror as Monica approached with a bowl of something steaming. Their environmental sensors detected capsaicin compounds at levels that would be considered chemical weapons on most civilized worlds. Anyone want to try my ramen? She offered. It's spicy, but not too bad. Just got a little sriracha and red pepper flakes. Clarification needed. Nexus V's processor's word. You intentionally infuse your nutrition with pain-inducing compounds. It adds flavor. Sarah enthusiastically squeezed more hot sauce onto her noodles. Some people collect different hot sauces. My dad grows his own ghost peppers. The concept of cultivating plants specifically for their defensive toxins sent two alien students into temporary shutdown mode. Professor Zix 427 hastily began composing a request for additional research funding in the field of human dietary masochism. The situation escalated when they reached the dessert station. Vex 12's protective field crackled with alarm as they witnessed humans consuming frozen lactation derivatives combined with processed sucrose crystals. Ice cream is the best, James declared, spraying additional sweetened cream onto his bowl, especially when you eat it really fast and get that cool brain-freeze sensation. They deliberately induced cranial temperature warnings. Lyra 8 pulsed in disbelief. As a recreational activity? Before the professor could intervene, Sarah returned with something even more terrifying. Look what they have today, carbonated beverages. The bubbles make your nose tingle. The alien students recoiled as they processed the concept of voluntarily ingesting pressurized liquid containing dissolved gas. Their horror only deepened when they learned humans sometimes conducted competitions to see who could consume it most rapidly. But surely, Mrix ventured hopefully, these are specialized survival practices, not regular consumption patterns. Monica laughed, opening a packet of something labeled Pop Rocks. Oh no, this is just normal lunch. Wait until you see what we eat at parties. Has anyone told you about birthday cake yet? Professor Zix 427's research notes became increasingly urgent. Humans have developed ritualistic celebrations centered around the consumption of combined sugar grain constructs adorned with combustible wax protrusions. Participants encouraged to extinguish flames through respiratory expulsion before ingestion. Purpose unclear. Further study required. The final straw came when James casually mentioned something called competitive eating contests. The mere concept of humans turning sustenance consumption into an endurance sport sent the entire research team into emergency meditation protocols. As the alien students huddled in their portable relaxation chambers, they could hear their human classmates enthusiastically planning a weekend barbecue. The university's xenobiology department began preparing an emergency presentation on the difference between human recreational fire use and planetary destruction scenarios. The university's media center hummed with anticipation as Professor Zix 427 prepared to introduce their research team to human recreational activities. The large display screen flickered to life, showing various sporting events from around Earth. Before we begin, the professor's tentacles waved cautiously. Please remember that your panic suppressors have been upgraded after the cafeteria incident. Lyra 8's crystalline structure already showed signs of stress fractures as a skydiving video began playing. Those humans are deliberately exiting perfectly functional atmospheric vehicles. Oh yeah, that's from last summer's jump, Sarah beamed. The free fall is amazing. You feel completely weightless until you pull the chute. The alien students' collective horror frequencies reached new heights when they realized she was speaking from personal experience. Mrix's gaseous form briefly turned an unprecedented shade of ultraviolet. Next up, James clicked through his presentation. Here's some footage from the X Games. This is my favorite part, the motorcycle backflips. Professor Zix 427 quickly administered emergency stabilization fields to 3 students who began displaying signs of reality rejection syndrome. Perhaps we should start with something less extreme. Good idea, Monica nodded, taking control of the display. Let's show them some traditional sports first. Here's last year's soccer championship. The sight of 22 humans voluntarily running for extended periods while fighting over a spherical object set Nexus V's processors into a temporary logic loop. They expend crucial energy reserves for entertainment. It's not just entertainment, Sarah explained enthusiastically. Sports teach teamwork, strategy, and help us stay healthy. Some people make careers out of it. Vex 12's protective field pulsed erratically. Your species has developed specialized roles for recreational endurance trials. The situation deteriorated further when James pulled up footage of swimming competitions. The alien students watched in horror as humans purposefully immersed themselves in dihydrogen monoxide and propelled themselves through it at high speeds. My sister's on the Olympic team, Monica mentioned proudly. She specializes in butterfly stroke. That's the really splashy one. Professor Zix 427's research notes became increasingly frantic. Humans have categorized different methods of liquid traversal. They compete to determine optimal water displacement techniques. Evolution purpose unclear. The presentation continued with clips of rock climbing, which caused 2 alien students to initiate emergency meditation protocols. The concept of deliberately scaling vertical surfaces for entertainment proved too much for their rational minds to process. Check this out, James enthused, showing video of a parkour competition. This is urban freestyle, using city architecture as an obstacle course. Clarification needed, Mrix pulsed weakly. They reconstruct their habitats into challenge environments. Oh no, Sarah laughed. We just use the buildings as they are. That's what makes it fun. The professor's tentacles curled in academic distress as they added another note. Humans view their entire built environment as potential recreational equipment. No surface appears to be exempt from athletic possibilities. The final segment featured winter sports, showing humans strapping smoothboards to their feet and accelerating down frozen precipitation slopes. Lyra 8 immediately initiated their emergency backup consciousness. Snowboarding is the best, James grinned. Nothing like fresh powder on a crisp morning. We should organize a trip when winter comes. The mere suggestion sent the remaining conscious alien students into synchronized panic modes. Professor Zix 427 hastily ended the presentation before anyone could mention extreme sports like base jumping or volcano surfing. As the emergency meditation chambers hummed with overuse, the professor added a final research note. hypothesis. Humans have evolved beyond normal survival instincts, replacing them with an inexplicable drive to challenge their environment's deadliest aspects. Request immediate funding for psychological study on species-wide adrenaline addiction. Professor Zix 427 reviewed the liability waivers one final time as their research team gathered at the edge of the university's designated camping grounds. The setting sun painted the sky in colors that the alien students' optical sensors struggled to process. Remember, the professor's tentacles twisted nervously. This overnight observation of human recreational habitat abandonment is entirely voluntary. Lyra 8's crystalline structure reflected the dying sunlight as they watched Sarah enthusiastically hammer tent stakes into the ground. They secure their temporary shelters using percussion-driven metal spikes. Yep, keeps the tent from blowing away, James explained, unrolling sleeping bags. Though sometimes I just sleep under the stars if the weather's nice. Mrix's gaseous form condensed in horror. Clarification needed. You willingly expose yourself to nocturnal cosmic radiation. That's half the fun, Monica grinned, arranging stones in a circle. Nothing better than falling asleep while stargazing. But first, who wants to help build the campfire? Professor Zix 427 quickly administered calming fields to 3 alien students who began displaying signs of acute stress at the mention of controlled combustion. Perhaps we should discuss the scientific aspects of human outdoor adaptation. Good idea, Sarah nodded, pulling out bags of food. Let me show you how to make s'mores. It's a camping tradition. Nexus V's processors whirred in confusion as they watched humans deliberately suspend processed carbohydrate squares over open flames. They modify their nutrition using primitive thermal applications for entertainment. Not just entertainment, James said, carefully rotating his marshmallow. There's something special about cooking outdoors. Makes everything taste better. Vex 12's protective field crackled with concern. Your species associates increased flavor satisfaction with elevated risk factors. The situation grew more perplexing as darkness fell and the humans began sharing what they called ghost stories. The alien students struggled to understand why their companions were voluntarily inducing fear responses through fictional narratives. And some say, Monica whispered dramatically by the firelight, you can still hear the creature stalking these woods on full moon nights. Professor Zix 427's research notes became increasingly bewildered. Humans appeared to simulate danger scenarios during recreational activities, possibly as psychological preparation for actual survival situations. Alternative hypothesis: species-wide appreciation for controlled anxiety experiences. The real challenges began when it was time to sleep. The alien students watched in fascination and horror as their human companions willingly enclosed themselves in synthetic fiber cocoons on the ground. Listen to the crickets. Sarah sighed contentedly, snuggling into her sleeping bag. And I think I hear an owl. You derive comfort from unknown biological entities announcing their presence. Lyra 8 pulsed with concern. It's peaceful, James yawned, using his backpack as a pillow, like nature's lullaby. The professor's tentacles curled in academic distress as they added another note. Humans have evolved to find auditory evidence of potentially threatening wildlife soothing. Remarkable adaptation to constant environmental stress. Throughout the night, the alien research team documented their human companions' bizarre behaviors, voluntarily leaving the tents to observe lunar illumination, expressing joy at detecting nocturnal fauna, and even requesting to repeat the experience in more challenging terrain. Next time, Monica mumbled sleepily, we should try backcountry camping. Really get away from civilization. The mere suggestion of intentionally increasing their distance from emergency support systems sent the remaining alert alien students into emergency meditation protocols. Professor Zix 427 made a final note before initiating their own rest cycle. Conclusion: humans have not merely adapted to their Deathworld, they actively seek to maximize its challenging aspects for recreational purposes. Recommendation: Update galactic classification to include warning about species' unusual relationship with environmental hazards. As the campfire died down to embers, the night was punctuated by the soft snoring of humans and the gentle hum of alien protective fields running at maximum power. The Galactic Academic Board's chamber hummed with anticipation as Professor Zix 427 and their research team prepared to present their findings. The massive holographic display flickered to life, showing Earth's deceptively peaceful-looking blue sphere. Distinguished colleagues, the professor's tentacles moved in formal academic patterns. We present our conclusive study on why Earth's Class 12 Deathworld classification may require significant revision. Lyra 8's crystalline structure had finally stabilized after weeks of exposure therapy. Our initial hypothesis about human survival mechanisms proved drastically insufficient. The board members leaned forward in their gravity chairs as Mrix's gaseous form swirled confidently. Earth isn't a death world because of its environmental conditions. It's a death world because it produced humans, a species that views lethal planetary challenges as entertainment opportunities. The presentation displayed footage of human recreational activities, causing several board members to activate their emergency stabilization fields. Nexus V's processors hummed as they narrated the images. Observe their sports activities. They indicated a montage of extreme athletes. Humans intentionally replicate survival scenarios for competitive purposes. They celebrate individuals who take the greatest risks. Professor Zix 427 advanced the presentation to their dietary findings. Their relationship with molecular gastronomy defies conventional logic. They deliberately cultivate plants that evolved chemical defenses, calling them spices and seasonings. More remarkably, Vex 12 added, their protective field pulsing with academic excitement, they created an entire cultural practice around consuming these toxins. They rate them on scales of pain intensity. The board's chief researcher raised an appendage. Surely these are specialized survival adaptations. That's what we initially assumed, Mrix replied, displaying footage from their camping expedition. But humans pursue these activities purely for entertainment. They call it getting back to nature or challenging themselves. The chamber erupted in electromagnetic signals of disbelief as they showed humans willingly sleeping outdoors, climbing frozen water formations, and diving into oceanic depths to say hello to the fish. Their adaptation to planetary dangers has evolved beyond mere survival. Lyra 8 explained, their structure gleaming with academic pride. Humans actively seek out environmental challenges. They've turned their world's deadliest aspects into recreational opportunities. Professor Zix 427 display their most controversial finding. They've even developed educational institutions dedicated to teaching young humans how to engage with environmental hazards. They call them adventure schools and wilderness training programs. The board's emergency stabilization field activated automatically when the presentation showed children learning to ski. They exposed their offspring to these practices. Indeed, Nexus V confirmed, human children are encouraged to play outside and explore their surroundings. They consider it essential for healthy development. The final slides showcased humans celebrating various weather phenomena, surfing in electrical storms, chasing tornadoes, and camping in sub-zero temperatures. Several board members had to be revived with calming frequencies. Our conclusion, Professor Zix 427 announced, their tentacles moving in precise academic gestures, is that Earth's classification requires a unique addendum. It's not merely a death world. It's a world that created a species that transformed planetary hazards into a source of joy. The chamber fell silent as the board processed this unprecedented proposal. Finally, the chief researcher spoke. Your evidence suggests humans don't merely survive their world's dangers. They embrace them. Exactly, Mrix pulsed enthusiastically. They've developed something they call adrenaline rush, a physiological reward for engaging with hazardous conditions. The board's final decision was unanimous. Earth would retain its Class 12 designation, but with a special note warning that its dominant species actively seeks out and creates new environmental challenges for recreation. As the research team concluded their presentation, Professor Zix 427 received an invitation from their human friends to go whitewater rafting next semester. The professor made one final academic note before filing for an extended medical leave. Humans don't just survive their Deathworld. They're determined to prove they can have fun with it.